Welcome everyone to another Minecraft building tutorial. In today's video, we are going to be covering some tips that I have learned from building in Minecraft. Are you ready to take your builds to the next level? Let's get started. In today's video, we are going to be looking at some building ideas that you can use to build a starter base. With the designs that we are covering today, the materials that are used are some of the materials that are relatively easy to collect when you're in the early part of the game, which means I won't be including blocks that are hard to collect or that require going to the end or the nether. And if you like any of the designs, I will be including a link in the description to a world download that will let you take a look at the builds in person. But let's go ahead and take a look at our first design, the dirt hut, which on the surface looks rather simple, but let's go inside and see what it is that makes it a good starter base. And this ladder right here at the beginning takes us down to this room, which has a lot of the main essentials that you will need in any starter base. So we've got a bed, we've got a crafting table, a smithing table. Over here, we've got a full enchantment setup, which will let you be able to enchant up to level 30. Over on this side, we've got some sugarcane growing, and here we have some wheat, which can be used for some food. And down in the floor, we have 16 barrels for storage and 9 furnaces for smelting. All in all, this is a pretty nice compact design that would give you all of the essentials that you would need when you first start out in the game. And if we take a look in this chest, the materials needed to build this starter base are not too bad and would be pretty easy to collect at the very beginning of the game. Now it's time to move on to the second design. This starter base is an actual house, and it includes a couple of fun little details that I really like. Let's take a look at it. Around the exterior, you will notice that we have these planter boxes underneath the windows to be able to have flowers, and supporting the planter boxes is this little design here, which is just a full block and a couple of walls. For the windows, you will notice that I've used trapdoors as shutters, which is pretty common. But what if you need a space on the inside where you don't have windows, but it's just going to be a plain wall on the outside? How can you make it interesting? Instead of having the trapdoors open and a window, you can just have the trapdoors up against the wall so it looks like the shutters are closed, and you still have the window design on the outside, but on the interior, you can use that wall for whatever you need it to be. If we go inside, we can see a couple of different ways that we can maximize limited space. For example, on the exterior of the wall right here, you can see this is where the spruce logs are, but on the interior, we can use that gap to fill in with barrels for extra storage. And while I have shelves here, you could also replace these shelves with furnaces if you needed more space to be able to smelt up items. Another easy way to add some detail to your builds is in the ceiling. When you have these beams going across, rather than using full blocks to fill in the space, you can use some slabs, and what that does is create a little bit of depth without taking up a lot of extra space. Coming around to the back and down into the basement, we have this space, which includes a lot of the same details that we have up above. So we've got the slabs and the beams, we've got the barrels in this little gap here, and there's plenty of storage down here for any starter base to be able to use. An easy early game design for a floor that doesn't take a lot of different resources is this checker pattern with either cobblestone and smooth stone, or you could even use some regular stone in here, and the border of the smooth stone merges very well with either the cobblestone or the stone to create a design that has some larger squares and some smaller squares, just to make it a little bit more interesting. And even with the variety of blocks used in this build, if we look in the chest, the resources for this build are not too bad. On this next design, we are going to step up the detail just a little bit. With this starter base, I was going for more of a rustic cabin type of look, and I think that there are some interesting details with this one as well. The first detail that you might notice is the use of these walls along the base, and I think what these do is when you're looking at it straight on from a distance, you won't really notice that they're there. But up close, what you see, or if you're at an angle, that there is a little bit of depth to this build, and it creates a nice variation to just having a flat wall. If we go inside, you'll be able to see that we have a lot of the things that you would need in a starter base. So we've got a bed over here, we've got a crafting table, we have furnaces and smokers, and then in the floor, we use barrels to have a bunch of extra storage without taking up extra space in the room. Normally, it would be difficult to put a furnace in a wall, especially when it's just one block wide, because on the outside, you would then see that that is where the furnace is placed. But again, because we have those walls and other blocks along the base outside, it helps to hide the fact that the furnaces are here. From the outside, you're not even really able to tell unless you get up close, and then you can see that the smokers are right here. While this build has a lot of little details, if we take a look at the chest, the amount of resources needed is not too bad. But the question is, can we create a starter base that has even more detail while still being something that can be built in the early game? And you probably already know the answer, which is yes, we can. This design is primarily made using oak blocks, but it does have a couple of fun blocks in there as well, including clay, which is really nice to use, and ever since the 1.18 update, it's been much easier to collect. If we go inside, there are a couple of features here that are different from the previous builds that we have done. For example, we have used this combination of barrels and stone brick walls to create a nice rounded corner as well as a convenient storage location. We use trapdoors over here to separate out the area where the bed is. We also use the trapdoors across the ceiling to add a little bit of depth to where a beam would be going across to support the rest of the roof. And even with the various little details added to this build, if we take a look at the chest, the amount of materials used is not too bad. But can we come up with a starter base that looks like a modern house? Why, yes, we can. This starter base is a little different than most of my other builds that I've done before, and it was quite fun to try something new. If we go inside, we'll be able to see that this has a lot of the things that you would need in a starter base, including a bunch of furnaces, a bed, and plenty of storage. But this also has a lot of features that would be found in a modern house. Sort of like this decorative chain right here, or this combination of chains and light, or this couch. If there was one thing that I would change about this build, it would be the use of white concrete instead of this white wool. But the reason that I went with the white wool was because it's easier to collect early game than it is to get a bunch of white concrete. And even though this build looks like one of the bigger builds that we've completed, taking a look at the chest, we can see that the materials used wouldn't be too hard to collect in the early game. But there we go. We've got 5 different types of ideas that you can use to create a starter base in your own world, and hopefully these will be helpful to be able to take your starter bases to the next level. And if you would like to take a look at these builds yourself, there is a link in the description down below for a world download, and you will be able to have each of these builds to come and explore yourself. But that's going to do it for today's video. If you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like. If you want to see more, please subscribe. And until next time, see you later.